Have you ever really stopped to think about that number on a price tag? You know, for your coffee, maybe some new shoes, or even booking a flight. It looks so simple, right? Just a number. But what actually goes into setting that price? Turns out it's way more than just cost plus profit. It's this whole mix of strategy, psychology, market stuff. So today we're doing a deep dive into something really fundamental in business: setting prices. And for all you Appalachian State University College of Business juniors listening, we're basically unpacking Chapter 20 from your marketing textbook. But look, this isn't just about prepping for an exam. It's about really getting a handle on a core concept that honestly can make or break a company.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yeah, our mission here is to kind of untangle all the complex bits of pricing. We want to break down the strategies companies actually use and show you how these ideas pop up in the real world with actual businesses and maybe even, surprisingly, how it applies to you. We really want to help you move past just memorizing terms, to get why these choices are made, the trade-offs, and how pricing shapes, well, everything in marketing.
Okay, let's dive in then. So marketers apparently use this systematic six-stage process for setting prices. Think of it like a roadmap, a logical way to figure out price's role in the whole marketing mix.
Exactly. And stage one, the absolute starting point, is the development of pricing objectives. These are basically the goals a company wants to hit with its pricing. And they have to line up with the bigger marketing goals of the whole organization. It's all about what you're trying to achieve.
Okay, so it's not just pulling a number out of thin air. It's about the goal behind the number. What kinds of goals are we talking about? Is it always just about making the most profit possible?
Well, that's what a lot of people think, but no. Profit's usually a factor, sure, but it's often not the only one. For example, sometimes the main goal is just survival. Seriously. That's when a company might set prices super low, maybe even below what it costs to make the thing, just to sell enough to cover bills and, stay in business during a rough patch, or if competition is fierce, it's short-term thinking just to stay alive.
Wow. Okay. Survival. Makes sense in tough times.
Then yeah, you definitely have profit objectives. While this idea of profit maximization is actually pretty hard to pin down and measure, companies do set specific profit targets. Could be a certain dollar amount or maybe a percentage of sales revenue. And tied closely to that is return on investment, or ROI. That's pricing to get a specific payback on the money the company invested. This often takes some trial and error, because you don't always have perfect information right away.
Right. You can't predict everything perfectly. It's not just theory.
Exactly. Another big one is market share. Aiming to keep, or ideally, increase your slice of the pie, your sales, compared to everyone else in the industry. Your textbook mentions Gillette, right? They're always focused on holding on to or growing their share in the shaving market, even if the whole market isn't really growing much. It's about how you stack up against the competition.
Okay, market share. What else?
Well, there are cash flow objectives. This is where companies price things, usually higher, to get cash back really quickly. The risk there, of course, is that high prices can kind of invite competitors to jump in. And then you've got status quo goals. This is more about just, keeping things stable, maintaining your current market share, maybe matching what competitors charge, avoiding big price wars. It kind of takes price off the table as the main battleground and shifts focus to other things like features or service.
And what about pricing that's maybe less about the market and more focused on the product itself, like signaling something?
Yes. That leads us to product quality objectives. If a company wants to be seen as the leader in quality, they typically charge a high price. It's partly to cover potentially high R&D costs, but it's also, and this is key, to send a message, to convey that premium image. Think about Mercedes, right? They keep prices high consistently. It reinforces that luxury brand perception, that idea of top quality. What's really interesting, though, is how these objectives aren't separate buckets. They often pull in different directions, create tension. The company isn't just picking one. They're usually balancing several at once. It gets complicated.
Okay, yeah, I can see that. So moving to stage 2, assessment of the target market's evaluation of price. This is where I think it gets really interesting. Price isn't just a fixed thing, right? Its importance totally changes depending on the product, who you're selling to, the situation. It's all about the perceived value.
That's such a crucial point.
Yeah.
And the examples in your book really drive this home. Think about a simple can of soda, 12 ounces. Why on earth would you pay like $1 at a vending machine, maybe $5 at the movies, but only 50 cents at the supermarket buying a case?
Right. Same soda.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's the context, the convenience, maybe the experience you're having, the value you perceive shifts based on where and when you buy it, not just what's in the can.
Or the steak dinner example. You expect to pay totally different amounts for a steak at, say, a basic cafeteria versus a really fancy restaurant, or even some charity fundraising dinner. The food might be broadly similar, but the setting, the service, the whole occasion changes what feels like an acceptable price.
Precisely. Or think about getting a flat tire fixed.
Yeah.
Urgency plays a huge role. You'd probably pay a lot more if you're stuck on some empty highway miles from anywhere compared to being in town where you have options, maybe even public transport.
Yeah, definitely.
And the duplicate car key example is perfect too. Getting an extra key made just in case. Low value, maybe a few bucks. But if your keys are locked in the car and your non-refundable flight leaves in half an hour, suddenly that key is worth a lot more to you. The big takeaway here for marketers, the aha moment, is realizing value is totally subjective. It's in the customer's head. Understanding those subtle perceptions is absolutely key to setting a price that actually works.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So next up is stage 3, evaluation of competitors' prices. You can't price in a bubble, right? Marketers have to know what the competition is doing.
Absolutely. You operate in a marketplace. Knowing competitor prices is essential for figuring out where you fit, how you position your own product. Firms look at what rivals charge and then make a strategic choice. Do they price slightly above them? Maybe to signal higher quality or exclusivity. Apple does this a lot with the iPhone, right? Positioning it as a premium product justifies that higher price point compared to many Android phones.
Yeah, that's a classic example.
Or they might price at the same level as competitors, maybe to avoid a price war and compete on other factors. Or they could decide to price below the competition, often to grab market share or attract price-sensitive customers.
And the source material has some really good case studies that show this in action, doesn't it?
It does. Think about Warby Parker from video case 20.1. Their whole $95 price point for glasses wasn't just some random number. It was a deliberate, direct attack on the really high prices that dominated the eyewear industry, which was almost like a monopoly. They used price to make people rethink what competitors were charging, offering clear value. They basically changed the game.
Yeah, they really disrupted things.
And another great one is Norwegian Air Shuttle from case 20.2. Their entire strategy is built around being low cost. How they priced their flights was totally driven by looking at competitors. They entered routes offering fares way cheaper than established airlines, specifically to steal market share in a super competitive industry. Their whole appeal is that low price.
So after thinking about your own goals, what customers value, and what competitors are doing, we get to stage 4, selection of a basis for pricing. And here, there are 3 main ways to go: cost, demand, or competition. The choice really depends on things like the product, how the industry works, your market share, and who your customers are. It's a pretty fundamental decision.
Right, let's break those down. First is cost-based pricing. This is probably the most straightforward. You figure out your costs, and then you add something on top, either a fixed dollar amount or a percentage. It's simple, relatively easy to calculate, but the potential downside is it might ignore what customers are actually willing to pay or what competitors are up to.
So like cost plus pricing, where Joe's sandwich shop figures out what each sandwich costs to make and then just adds, say, $2 to set the price.
Exactly. That's common when costs are maybe a bit uncertain, like for custom jobs. Another type you see everywhere, especially in retail, is markup pricing. Think Costco or Sam's Club adding, say, 14% to their cost to get the selling price. Or your book mentions markup on things like restaurant pizza or beer and wine. You just calculate your cost and add a standard percentage. A key thing to understand, though, is that markup can be calculated based on the cost or based on the selling price. They give you different numbers, so retailers have to be clear on which one they're using.
Okay, cost-based. What's next?
Then you have demand-based pricing. Here, price isn't primarily driven by cost, but by customer demand. Higher price when demand is high, lower price when demand is weak. You see this all the time in industries with fixed capacity and perishable services. Think airlines, hotels, concert venues.
Ah, right. Like Norwegian Air again. Flight prices change constantly based on how many seats are left and how close it is to the departure date.
Precisely. That often involves things like dynamic pricing, prices changing frequently, sometimes automatically, based on algorithms assessing demand. We're seeing it more with things like toll roads now, too. Or yield management, which is this complex system airlines and hotels use to maximize revenue by constantly adjusting prices across different fare classes or room types based on predicted demand.
Man, it sounds like a real tightrope walk, balancing all these factors.
It really can be. And the third basis is competition-based pricing. Here, the main driver is what your competitors are charging. Costs might be secondary. Imagine a new furniture store opening up. They might decide to price everything significantly lower than established rivals just to get noticed and attract customers quickly. Which basis a company chooses often says a lot about the industry they're in and their overall strategy. Each one has pros and cons, and smart companies know which one makes the most sense for their situation.
Okay, that leads us logically into stage 5, selection of a pricing strategy. So this is the actual game plan, the overall approach to hit those pricing and marketing goals we talked about earlier. And wow, looking through the chapter, there are a ton of different strategies companies can use. Lots of tools in the toolbox here.
There really are. We can group them into a few categories. Let's start with strategies under the umbrella of differential pricing. This basically means charging different prices to different buyers for pretty much the same product. It works best when you have distinct customer segments willing to pay different amounts.
Like haggling at a car dealership, right? That's negotiated pricing. Everyone ends up paying a slightly different price for the same car model through bargaining.
Exactly. Or secondary market pricing. A good example is textbook publishers selling the same book in the US for one price, but then offering cheaper international student editions elsewhere. Same core content, different price for a different market segment. Then there's periodic discounting, temporary price cuts that happen on a regular schedule. Think of department store sales, like Dillard's big 4th of July sale. Everyone knows it's coming.
Uh-huh. The problem is customers might just learn to wait for the sale, right?
That's the risk. So to counter that, some companies use random discounting. Price cuts that are unpredictable, unsystematic, like online flash sales that pop up without warning. The idea is to create excitement and urgency without training customers to always expect a discount. But transparency is key here. Customers hate feeling tricked.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
What about pricing brand new products?
Okay, new product pricing. Two main strategies here. First is price skimming. This is where you launch a new product, the highest possible price you think the most eager customers, the early adopters, will pay. Think of Tiffany's launching some exclusive new emerald necklace. Super high price to signal prestige and capture maximum value from those who want it first. It helps recoup R&D costs quickly and can manage demand if production is limited initially. But the danger is it attracts competitors like moths to a flame, and you might misjudge demand if the price is too high.
Right, and the opposite approach is penetration pricing, which feels like a much bolder move.
It is pretty bold. You set the initial price really low, aiming to grab a large chunk of the market share quickly. Maybe Coca-Cola entering a new country might price its sodas lower than local brands initially to encourage trial and build volume fast. The big advantage is it can really stimulate sales and discourage potential competitors from entering because the profit margins look thin. But the huge disadvantage is it's really hard to raise prices later once customers are used to paying that low amount. It sets a low perceived value.
Okay, so skimming starts high, penetration starts low. What about pricing within a whole product line, not just single items?
Good point. That's product line pricing, where the goal is to maximize profit across the entire range, not just individual items. Several tactics fall under this. There's captive pricing. You price the main product low, but the things you need to use with it are expensive.
Ah, the classic printer and ink cartridge situation, or razors and blades.
Exactly. Then premium pricing. Within your product line, the highest quality item gets the highest price, signaling its superior features, while other versions might be priced lower to appeal to different segments. You also have bait pricing. This is pricing one item really low to lure customers in, but the hope is actually to sell them a different, higher-priced item once they're there.
Sounds a bit iffy, like bait and switch.
It can be, and that's where you have to be careful. A true bait and switch, where you advertise the cheap item but have no real intention or stock to sell it, is deceptive and often illegal. Bait pricing is okay if the low-priced item is genuinely available, but you also try to upsell. And price lining involves setting just a few specific price points for groups of products. Like, a clothing store might price all its casual dresses at $35, all its work dresses at $55, and all its evening dresses at $85. It simplifies things for customers in inventory management, assuming demand is relatively stable within those price bands.
It's amazing how many subtle ways price can be used to nudge customers. Which brings us to psychological pricing. This seems to be all about playing on customer emotions or perceptions, right?
Absolutely. It taps into how we think about price, not just the rational calculation. Reference pricing is a common one. You place your product, maybe a store brand like Walmart's Great Value, right next to a more expensive national brand. The comparison makes your product look like a better deal.
Or bundle pricing, like fast food combo meals. Carl's Jr. selling a burger, fries, and drink together for less than buying them all separately.
Exactly. It makes the perceived value higher. Even something like the Panera Cares community cafes, with their pay-what-you-can approach, while not a typical bundle, definitely plays on psychological factors of fairness, community, and value.
And we see multiple unit pricing all the time, like 2 cans for 99 cents instead of just pricing one at 50 cents. It encourages buying more.
It does. It signals a bargain, even if the per-unit price isn't that much lower. Another huge one is everyday low pricing, or EDLP. Companies like Walmart, and Aldi is another good example, aim for consistently low prices across the board rather than relying on frequent sales and promotions.
So Target uses this trying to compete with Walmart.
Yeah, Target and others employ EDLP to build trust and reduce the need for constant advertising of sales. It can stabilize sales. But interestingly, customers sometimes have mixed feelings. They've kind of been trained by other retailers to look for the excitement of a big sale, so EDLP can sometimes feel a bit flat.
Huh. Interesting psychology there.
Definitely. Then there's odd-even pricing. Ending prices in 0.99 or 0.95, like 99.95 instead of $100. It just feels significantly cheaper to many people, even though it's only a nickel or a cent less.
The power of the number 9.
It's strangely effective. Conversely, using even numbers like $100 can sometimes signal higher quality or prestige. We also have customary pricing, where prices are set largely based on tradition, like the McDonald's $1 cheeseburger, which stayed at that price point for a very long time, even as costs went up because it was just expected. And prestige pricing is basically the opposite of bargain hunting, setting prices artificially high to convey luxury, quality, status. Think Rolex watches. The high price is part of the appeal.
Okay, nearly there. What about professional pricing?
Right. This applies to services from skilled professionals, doctors, lawyers, consultants. Fees are often standardized based on the service, not necessarily tied directly to the time spent. There's an ethical component here, too, not to overcharge.
And finally, promotional pricing. Prices tied directly to marketing promotions.
Yeah, things like price leaders, sometimes called loss leaders. Selling a popular product at or even below cost just to get people into the store, hoping they'll buy other, more profitable items while they're there. Milk or eggs are common examples. Or special event pricing, big advertised sales tied to holidays or seasons. Black Friday is the ultimate example, or those January clearance sales department stores run to get rid of old stock. And comparison discounting, showing a sale price next to a regular or compare at price. But the FTC watches this closely. The higher comparison price needs to be legitimate, something the item actually sold for recently, to avoid misleading consumers.
Wow. Okay, that is a seriously comprehensive list of strategies. It really shows how strategic pricing can be. So all of that leads us finally to stage 6, determination of a specific price. This is it, the final number crunching, where the chosen strategy gets translated into an actual price tag. It sounds like you really need to have done your homework in all the previous stages. Know your objectives, your market, your competitors, your cost, demand, your strategy to get this right. It's where everything comes together.
That's exactly it. It's the culmination of the whole process. And the key thing to remember, as we said, is that price is one of the most flexible elements of the marketing mix. Assuming no government regulations are in the way, businesses can change prices relatively quickly compared to, say, developing a new product or changing distribution channels. It's a powerful dynamic lever, but it's not a set it and forget it thing. Pricing is ongoing. You constantly monitor and adjust.
So wrapping this up, what does all this really mean for you listening as an Appalachian State College of Business junior? Why does mastering this chapter matter beyond the classroom?
Well, it's not just theory, right? This is a practical toolkit for tackling real business challenges. And maybe, just maybe, it's even a bit of a guide for your own future. Absolutely. Let's connect it back to that idea from your sources. Pricing your product. You. Think about it. Understanding your own cost structure, what you need to live on, your budget for rent, food, student loans, maybe some fun that's like a business understanding its product costs. Then researching salary expectations for the jobs you want, seeing what the market pays for certain skills. That's like assessing market demand and competitor pricing for a product.
And figuring out your product quality.
Yes.
Your skills, your GPA, internships, unique experiences.
Yeah.
That helps determine whether you're positioning yourself at the high end or maybe the entry-level part of that price scale, that salary range.
Exactly. So all these concepts we've discussed, from objectives like survival, just covering your basic living costs, maybe all the way to prestige pricing, aiming for a top salary based on your unique value proposition. They actually apply directly to how you need to think about pricing yourself when you hit the job market. It's your own personal marketing mix.
So this deep dive, this chapter, gives you that framework. It helps you analyze your own value proposition as you get ready for your career.
It's not just about what salary you want, but understanding what the market is likely to offer for the skills and experience you bring, considering your costs and, yes, your competitors' other graduates vying for similar roles.
We've covered a lot today navigating the whole world of pricing, from setting clear objectives to understanding customer value and competitor actions, choosing the right basis, and then picking from that huge menu of pricing strategies. We've seen how companies like Warby Parker and Norwegian Air use these principles to shake things up and how it applies to even the simplest things you buy every day.
So here's a final thought to chew on. The next time you look at a price tag, or maybe even start thinking about salary negotiations for that first job or internship, will you just see a number? Or will you start to see the layers underneath? The strategy, the positioning, the psychology? How will you start using the principles of pricing to your advantage, both as a consumer and, importantly, as a future business professional?
Keep looking around you. Keep asking why things are priced the way they are. These principles are absolutely everywhere, shaping the choices we make every single day.